So we're standing in front of some energy beets, and Blaine Schatz here is the director at the CREC here. He's been in that position since 1996. He started here in 1978, and besides from his leadership responsibilities, he also plays an active role in our research program out here. And he received both his bachelor's and master's of science degrees from NDSU. So please welcome Blaine Schatz.
Seen a few familiar faces here in the trailers. So with that, if you've been with us, some of you have been with us for the last couple of years or few years, and you've heard us talk a bit about the Energy Beet project in the past. Our objective today is to give you an update, review first of all where we are with the project, review why we did the project in the first place, and give you some perspective upon where the broader project may be going in the future. Back in 2009, as a quick recap, the Carrington Center was approached by the Green Vision Group, basically Maynard Helgaas, Rod Holt, and Lloyd Anderson, principals behind what resulted in the Cavendish potato plant down in Jamestown area, to explore the potential of energy beet production for purposes of biofuel production and industrial sugars, to be sourced or produced in the non-traditional production areas of North Dakota. Again, their idea was to go outside the valley, not to provide competition or a contrast to the traditional sugar production inherent to the valley. And so we began with some limited trials in 2009 here at Carrington and at Oaks. In 2010 we expanded to Turtle Lake and the Daisy area, with both dryland and irrigated sites over at Daisy. In 2011 we expanded further to include the Maynard and Langdon Research Extension Centers. And I guess Williston came on board in 2010. And then last year we began to fill in some of the gaps in terms of evaluation of environments within these non-traditional production areas, which is really the glacial drift prairie region of North Dakota that we were focusing on. In that last year in 2012 we established for the first time trials in Wells County, just west of Harvey, in Stutzman County near the Energy Park, and then in Barnes County near the community of Litchville. And I guess also last year we went into Steele County for the first time near Colgate. And again, the idea here with these trials is basically for proof of concept. Can we in fact produce energy beets at a level and at a quality content that would be sufficient for a competitive industry that would ultimately use that as a feedstuff for producing biofuels? And that's where the focus has been on. That's what people tend to think about with this project, is biofuels, but also industrial sugars. And as you listen to the Green Vision principals, Maynard Helgaas and the others, and you listen to some of their other people that they work with, the industrial sugars is a tremendous marketplace, large marketplace, very high value marketplace. And so as you look at the potential of this project, sometimes we have the mindset, okay, what is gasoline costing right now? What's ethanol cost, and so forth? We have to keep in mind that this feed stuff that we have will yield industrial sugars that have many high-end applications. Okay, to date, what have we learned? Basically, we've learned that the energy beets are performing, frankly, beyond what we had initially anticipated would be their potential. We've had multiple seasons with some very contrasting temperature regimes, some very contrasting moisture regimes, and the level of performance that we've had has been, I would say, exceptional. Our dryland yields over the course of these years, where we've had multiple years of evaluation, have typically been around 23 ton to 28 ton on dryland yields. Irrigated environments that we've had have averaged between 28 and 35. Last year, as an example, where we had some first-time environments, and we also had some of those environments where we had some real dry growing conditions, namely the Carrington, Spiritwood, Colgate locations. We saw yields that were 20 ton at Spiritwood, about 23 here at Carrington, around 26 I think it was over at Colgate. So some pretty significant performance in some environments that were really very challenging for the season. And again, those are plot yields, yes, but I think as you look at our plot yields with wheat or corn or soybean, the yields that you see in the trial books and so forth are very similar to at least the yields that you see in major areas of your fields as you look at your yield monitors. So we're pretty confident in those numbers. The other thing related to that confidence is that with energy beets, they're basically sugar beets that have been are continuing to be bred specifically for industrial sugars or biofuel production. And so we're able to use production practices that the typical sugar producer is not going to be able to use in terms of nitrogen fertility strategies and also the utilization of some germplasm that would just not be providing the quality sugar that the sugar industry needs. So we actually have some production potential advantages that the traditional sugar grower is not going to have. The performance level that we've attained has been very positive. The quality we've had is likewise. Our sugar contents range from about 16.5 to 21. It's quite a range, yes, but that represents the diversity of probably 30 or so trials. Typically, we're looking at around 17.7 to about 19% sugar, so very competitive sugar content. Some other things that we've learned from our experiences with energy beets across these areas is that some of the anticipated rotational benefits or the positives of having a deep tap-rooted crop such as energy beets in a rotation are beginning to be substantiated. If you've heard me talk about the energy beets before, you know I've talked about that taproot system and the fact that in this non-traditional production area, we really lack that in our cropping systems. Very few sunflowers out there anymore. And that's really been our deep taproot. And without that root system, we have some soil health issues, some soil resource issues that we're having struggles with because of just the sheer lack of that type of root system. And the energy beets would provide that. And that's some of the anticipated benefits we believe we are realizing in the sense that the performance we had in some of these environments last year where we were very dry, to have 20, 23, 26 ton beets where we had moisture deficits that we had in some of these locations is really very significant. What we were doing there was clearly tapping into subsoil moisture that we knew we had going into the season. We had certain crops that are not going to root beyond that 2.5, 3 foot length. The beets are going to be going down to the 4 foot, to the 5 foot, to the 6 foot, clearly, and utilizing that resource. And for those who are interested in cover crops, one of the reasons that people are interested in cover crops or cover crop mixes is the development of a root biomass. And that's why as you look at radishes, turnips, and so forth, basically what you're interested there in particular is the root system. Imagine putting an energy beet crop in the spring of the year, not midsummer, not in the fall, that's producing 50,000 roots that are going down 5-6 feet. Just think about the porosity that you are developing in that acreage. The other thing related to the plant itself is we anticipated but not fully realize potential of the benefit is this tolerance to soil salinity. And I guess with that I'd like to call upon Dr. Mike Ostlie. Mike is our research agronomist here at the center, and I'd like Mike to share with you the evolution, if you will, of some of our energy beet work as we are anticipating future production and maybe opportunities to not only have a production stream within itself, but if nothing else, bridge the production opportunities between now and commercialized biofuel or industrial sugars.
Very early on last year, during my first year, we started hearing all about the energy beet project that was occurring here at Carrington, as well as getting some reports from other areas that sugar beets are one of the more saline tolerant species that you can plant in this area. That was early summer, and then later that summer, when I was visiting with the livestock scientist here at the research center as well, he started talking about how he was interested in using energy beets possibly as a high quality food source for cattle to mix in with corn silage. And so basically what we found there is an excellent opportunity to collaborate on kind of a niche or alternative use for energy beets in the area. And so last summer we applied for a grant to the Ag Product Utilization Committee with the state of North Dakota, and they agreed that what we had in mind was a very good project. And so what we wound up doing was we have a number of different studies here measuring soil salinity, looking at planting dates for energy beets, as one of the ways that you combat soil salinity is to plant when you can in some of these wet and saline areas. And so looking at more like early to mid-June date of plantings, and then kind of as the livestock component of that as well, we are working with a local grower about 10 miles east of town here, and we have 16 acres of energy beets planted out there. To kind of go through all the hoopla that is involved with energy beet harvest. So we have a little bit of a logistics challenge for this fall, and getting trucks lined up for this area with side dumps and figuring out where we're going to be piling them, and that's all part of the livestock research end of this, in that we're going to be looking for how do you store it, how do you feed it, as well as how do you deal with that much? Because when you're getting 20 to 30 or more tons an acre in some of these spots, you end up with a lot of beets really quick. And so basically one of the strategies we're looking at is having farmers go in, after a preventive plant or something, you have 5-10 acres that you can't get into early in the spring. You can go plant those to energy beets, and if you have livestock, you can use it right on your own farm, or work with your neighbors. Maybe they have cattle. At any rate, it is just an example of some of the opportunities that'll be out there as energy beets, as we find do quite well in this area anyway. At this moment, I'll turn it over to Blaine again. One
other comment I wanted to share relative to the things that we've learned about energy beet production is the fact that what I've shared with you to date largely are basically the pros, the positives. There are some cons or negatives that we've experienced both firsthand and through the experiences of some of our colleagues at some of the other research sites. And that is the issue of herbicide residues. We here at Carrington, we are coordinating the sites at Wells County, Stutzman County, Griggs County, Barnes County, Steele County, and so forth. And it's been a real challenge for us to find cooperators, or not so much cooperators, but cooperators that have suitable fields that we can put these trials on, because of the residual herbicides that are inherently there. Many of the herbicides that we use that might be things like Pursuit or Raptor, Spartan, etc. There's numerous of those different groups of modes of action of herbicides that cause residual or have residual activity, and a crop like energy beets or sugar beets are very sensitive to that. And unfortunately, many of these products do not provide just 1 year's worth of residual activity, excuse me, but sometimes 2 years, 3 years, even 4 years. And so as we look forward to the potential of energy beet production in the future, it's something we really have to be cognizant of, is that of having fields that are free of these residues. We have not only had difficulty finding fields, but as we found some fields that we thought were safe, we've had situations where, lo and behold, even though the producer had what were perceived to be pretty sound records, that we ultimately have lost some stands due to the fact that they had good details for the last 2 years, but maybe we never had good details for the 3 years out. And we just learned this morning that our trial up in Maynard was lost. We've had a reduced stand over the course of the preceding weeks, but basically some unanticipated residues were present, and we lost a trial there. So it's an important thing to keep in mind. My concluding comment to that point, however, is that though it's been a real challenge for us, it should not be a game stopper. Your producer colleagues in the valley are producing corn and beans, just like you're producing corn and beans and the other cereals or whatever the case might be, that where we have the issues with rotational challenges. Your producer neighbors in the valley are very successfully producing corn and beans and other crops and rotating with energy beets. With that, I'd like to call upon Maynard Helgaas. Maynard is the chairman or president of the Green Vision Group, who are the principals behind the project. They are the group that initiated the project, came to us at NDSU to basically develop a proof of concept about their potential. And we'd like to have Maynard give you an update on the status of the project at the present time.
Fourth year for me out here. I think this is a pleasure always to come to Carrington, because Blaine does such a beautiful job of programming, and always every year I come back, there's new improvements. Beets are really here as a tremendously potential profitable crop for central North Dakota. I would say it'll equate with the sugar industry in the Red River Valley. We got to just take care of our operations. We got to have good soil, good rotations, like Blaine mentioned. Right now, where we're at, we started this project in 2008. We did research in 2009 on burning the stillage material. That's the material that's left after fermentation. It has a high level of organic matter, and it burns at a very high temperature. And it'll produce about 70 to 75% of the energy that the plant requires. We only use 1.5 gallons of water when we make ethanol, compared to other processes that use significantly more. Sugar beets is one process. It's processing, squeezing the sugar out of the beet. We don't have to work with processing corn, for example, into sugars, and then sugars into ethanol. So this is a more simple process. The storage of the beets and the juice in the beets is another area of research. We're gaining on that. We're finding we can grind these beets with a hammer mill and certain screens. 2 flushes of water that doesn't require heating, which also reduces our CO2 and our reduction in CO2 in the environment. So we will be an advanced biofuel. An advanced biofuel will demand a premium in the market. Currently, RINs are selling for some over $1.18 a gallon. That goes to the processor and the marketer of the RINs. So you share that, but growers will hopefully have an interest in that as well. I want to leave some room for questions. I wasn't expecting a second.
Where are you with anticipated further development of this plan?
Okay. Initially, we were looking at 2013, 2014 for the first plant. We needed to complete some more research on storing and squeezing juice and storing juice. And we're but done with that. We have, at the end of the year, we should have our information, thanks to Agathe and Adadin. It looks very promising. We think that we're going to be able to drive those costs out a little bit more yet. Then it's site selection for a plant. And this year, we will have information sufficient to complete a economic feasibility study looking at energy beets as the feedstock for ethanol and also for other sugars that we can sell to companies that make plastics, pharmaceuticals, nutricals, a lot of different other products from sugar. Sugar's beets are the quickest one of sugar. So we have 2 or 3 companies right now that we are talking to that are interested in hooking on to our beet crushing part of the process, that they can hook on and take our sugars, buy our sugars from us right at the plant. So not only are we looking for a processing plant for energy beets, there's also the possibility of another hook on for a company that wants to utilize those sugars. They continue to ask us, what's the price of your sugars? And that's the other one that we're working with. And we think we'll have that significant enough so that we could sign an agreement that we are willing to continue to work with them and come up with a price that's both equitable to the growers and the processing and also their business. So that's planned for 2000. We could possibly begin planning a plant in 2014. We will have, this year I believe we will be able to identify a site. We have the criteria developed. When we're looking at site locations, we look at coal locations where we might have it with a electric generation plant, utilizing their steam, and then selling our residual material from fermentation back to the plant. If they're using coal, they can spray that material right onto the coal and pick up that benefit as well and reduce their CO2 emissions. So it's a very healthy potential with different companies. I'm willing to take some questions if you've got time.
Right over there.
Yeah.
How come they're not doing this in traditional beet areas?
What's
They're
that?
not in traditional beet areas.
We're staying out of the traditional beet areas for a reason. They need expansion room too, and we're looking at 4-year rotations as a requirement. In the valley, they've gotten themselves into some problems because of continuous corn and beets, shortening the rotation so some production was done every other year. And now they can't grow beets anymore, so we don't want to get into that. When we're going to be dedicating 20,000 acres to a plant that will produce 20 million gallons of ethanol. If we goof up on our rotations and we create soils that have diseases built up over a period of years because of short rotations, we can't afford that. Because we have 20 miles, we don't want to haul it over 20 miles maximum. And that also deals with CO2 emissions, because when you're hauling beets, you're burning petroleum to some degree. So we can't replace all the petroleum. Dave Ripplinger is our mentor at the NDSU. We really have a good working relationship with Dave and with NDSU, with Blaine. We have a good team, and and the researchers. It just makes everything work well. And those people are connected throughout the United States with other interests in not only the process of using beets for energy, but also in the breeding process. Davis is working with a group out of the East Coast on a federal program to significantly increase the yield of sugar from beets. And we look forward to that opportunity as well.